All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, May 1st, year of our Lord 2025, and today we are going to talk about tariffs in a very practical kind of a way. Stay tuned. All right, everybody. Well, first thing I want to do, though, is just give you a quick update on my oldest son. He had his second game ever, and he walked twice and struck out once, and it was his very first strikeout ever. And his bat did not leave his shoulder, not even a little bit. It was a 5-pitch strikeout, and he didn't even think about swinging at any of the pitches. And I think I know what's going on. He's kind of an analytical guy, and he wants to get on base. He knows that. And he's walked so much, and he's starting to realize that the kid pitchers usually aren't that accurate. So he figures I can get on base, just by walking all the time, which is what you would do, especially if you're like, really competitive. If a guy can't throw strikes, you're not swinging the bat. But in Little League, I got to teach him a little aggression too, because in Little League, they start to expand the strike zone a little bit, especially if a pitcher's struggling. And you got to have a little bit of a killer instinct. If it's even close, you got to swing the bat, because you want to get on base, yes, but you also want to have a little fun too. So I gotta teach him a little bit of aggression when it comes to the plate. Look, if it's close and you think it might be a ball, you could still swing, and you'll probably hit it because they're not throwing all that hard. And, that's what you really want to do. So his 5-pitch walk, his bat did not leave his shoulder. He's just thinking, I'm going to get on base again, But anyway, good stuff. I love it. Little League is just so much fun. In any case, I want to talk about the tariffs, right? Because I'm starting to sense, and maybe you guys are too, I'm starting to sense a little unease in the ranks, a little dysentery in the ranks, you might say, about the reality of tariffs, right? Because the reality of tariffs, of course, everybody has known this since Kingdom Come. The tariffs are paid by the people who purchase the products. The people who are making and selling the products, they're not going to eat that price tag. They're going to pass along that price tag to the person who buys it. And so we're going to pay the tariffs. There's no question about that. And I'm not anti-tariff per se, but I don't think it's necessarily the right thing right now. But it doesn't matter what I think. I mean, it really makes no difference. It's Trump is trying to accomplish something, and he's going with tariffs as one of his strategies to accomplish it, and that is what it is. You just have to accept it, and you have to think these things through. Now, here's what I will say about the pain that people are starting to predict, because if you're listening to the media, they're telling you all kinds of things about how much things are going to cost and this and that. They're pumping up the fear, and there's no wonder there's a little bit of dysentery in the ranks, because they're just pumping fear constantly. And some of that fear is based in reality. Some of it is, of course, overblown. But you gotta put everything in perspective here, right? Because you gotta think, what if we don't do tariffs, right? What if things just kept chugging along the way they were going, right? Let's just assume Kamala Harris is elected president, and we're obviously everything that comes with that, but there's no tariffs, right? What would happen? So what would happen is all of the pain that we're going to be going through over the next, how many months, how many years, we still have to go through that at some point. At some point, the chickens come home to roost. At some point, China says, you know what? I don't want your paper money anymore. At some point, they start to realize that I don't want this money anymore. You know what I mean? I could sell it to somebody else and get money that's, more valuable or more beneficial to me, or so with a country I can bully around a little bit more so than they can bully the United States, because they really can't bully the United States, or at least not the way they could other smaller countries, right? At some point, we need to start producing stuff in the United States again. You know what I mean? We absolutely must, at some point, bring manufacturing back. There's all kinds of scenarios that I could envision that would, at some point in the future, require us to bring manufacturing back. And when we do that, there is going to be pain, because that is a process. It takes a lot of investment. What it takes is that essentially we start, as a nation, we start spending less, saving and investing more, and then there's a lag, right? Because, again, we can't get manufacturing facilities online just like that. It takes time. It takes investment. It takes patience. And so this is the way you got to think about this kind of stuff. We're going to be going through pain now, right? But if we didn't go through pain now, all we're doing is delaying the point where we have to go through pain, because at some point we can't spend the way we've been spending. At some point we must save way more than we've been saving, and that is just how it is. And so I understand that a lot of people don't want to go through this. Look at this. We got Agent Self FBI. I don't know if any of these numbers are real, so it could just be he could just be pushing black pills. I have no idea, but there is going to be a price hike. There's no question about it. Here's what he says. He says that a $628 jacket would now cost $1,797 because the tariff alone added over $1,000. A $90 shirt jumps to $300, not from taxes, not from shipping, but from tariffs. Okay, so let's just accept it. Just accept that is what it is, right? So here's the thing. That's painful, right? It's painful. I don't want to spend $276 on a shirt that I used to buy for $90. Nobody wants to do that. Anyone who's saying they want to do that is lying to you. Nobody wants to do that, right? But obviously, this is all intended to drive decision making, right? Because what's going to happen is that you're going to say, man, I could have had that $90 made in China shirt for $90, but now it's going to cost $300. What it's driving you to do is to say, okay, do I really need that shirt? That's one option. Do I even really need that shirt? That's the first option. Or to say, what alternative shirts could I buy, right? Is there a company, local to me, or an American company, a shirt company, where the shirt costs, maybe it costs $200 instead of $276? Maybe I'll go with that shirt because I do really need the shirt, but I'll go with the American shirt that's only $200. That's another option that you can make. Or here's another option. Here's an even greater option in many cases. Maybe I could buy a secondhand shirt, right? Maybe I'll buy a secondhand shirt so I don't have to spend $300 on a brand new shirt when I can go to the local store, secondhand shop, and get a decent shirt for, quarter the price, half the price, whatever the cost is, right? There's so many different options that you can consider. Maybe I buy one shirt instead of, I used to buy 4 shirts. I'm just going to buy one shirt now, right? There's so many different options. All of these options, by the way, they're the lower standard of living, potentially, for most people. Most of us aren't independently wealthy, so there's going to be decisions that are going to have to be made, right? Maybe instead of getting a new pair of sneakers every year, you don't get a new pair of sneakers until you need it. Until you actually need a new pair of sneakers, then you get a new pair of sneakers. Maybe that's the decision you make, right? A lot of people live like this already. You know what I mean? This is the reality, right? The economy's not gangbusters. And so a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and they put off purchases, and they decide, and they save, and they plan when they're going to buy certain things. And the thing is, some of us are not used to that lifestyle, but a lot of us live that lifestyle all the time, right? So we're talking about a lower standard of living in the near future. That's the pain that I'm talking about. But here's the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is this. That pain, that lowered standard of living, was coming one way or another. It's coming now or it's coming later. And the more we kick the can down the road, right, the more we delay that time of reckoning, not only the worse does the eventual reckoning get, and the more pain is required for the eventual reckoning, but also it's passed on to your children and your children's children and your children's children's children, right? And so I think all of us, there's a little fear right now, and look, that's understandable, right? Nobody likes a lower standard of living. Nobody does, right? But you got to keep a couple things in mind. Number one, you're not owed any standard of living. You're just not. You're just not. Look, maybe you're used to buying a new pair of kicks every year, but you know what? You're not owed that, right? You're not owed that, and you don't need it. That's a fact, and you need to, the quicker you can come to realization of that fact, the better off you're going to be, right? That's number one. Number two, I think you do owe your children and your children's children an opportunity to have a better future, right? Take the medicine now while you have the opportunity to do it, while you can take ownership of it. While, yes, we'll have to struggle, but it's on your shoulders, right? You're the one that might have to work a little harder to get the same stuff. You're the one that might have to make the tough decisions. Do we buy this now, or maybe do we wait and buy something else later? And all of this is designed so that your children and your children's children don't have to have that kind of difficulty, right? That's the situation. Like, if we didn't go through this now, if we chose not to take our medicine now, maybe it's your kids that have to take the medicine, and then they have no choice. Then they have no choice, and it's much worse medicine, right? That's how you have to keep this in mind, right? This is coming one way or another. And so, even if you don't disagree with what Trump is doing, like, it's actually a good thing that we get some of this stuff out of the way so that our children and our children's children have a much better opportunity than they do right now. And I think that the plan to make America manufacture stuff again, to produce stuff, to be in that position of power where you're actually the one that's productive and you're selling to the other countries who are less productive than you, that is absolutely a good thing for the country and will put us in a position of strength, maybe not immediately, but down the line. And so we're going to be sacrificing in the here and now, but it's not sacrifice without a point. It's sacrifice for the idea that our children can be in a better situation than we are, right? Our economy, our service sector economy, and on the things that we've got going on, I'm not saying it's terrible, but it puts us in a very weak position, right? Because at any point, I mean, think about it. If this is what's happening now, and we're all freaking out because we're going to have to pay $300 for a T-shirt or whatever it is. I don't know what kind of shirt it is. Or, $2,000 for a jacket and stuff like that. Like, imagine this, guys. Like, if this is how it is, think of the power that China has over us. At any point, they could just say, you know what? I think I'll sell the Europeans now. Turn off the spigot. Like, that's a dangerous position to put yourself in as a country. Extremely dangerous. And so, again, whether you like it, I'm not asking if you like the tariffs, right? Whether you think it's the right plan, I'm not asking if you think it's the right plan, right? What I am saying, though, is that the goals are definitely goals that, even if you don't like the goals, they have to happen at some point. America has to start making stuff again. It just has to. And so I think, Andrew Isker here has the right idea. What do you think Buy American meant? Vibes, paper, essays? Yeah, that's exactly it. It's not about the vibe of it. It's not about the, writing a strongly worded letter. We should buy American, right? Because the thing is, you could say that all day long, but the reality is, unless the incentives are that way, it's never going to happen. You'll get pockets of people that'll buy American, even if it's more expensive and stuff like that. You'll get pockets. But if you want to drive massive amounts of behavior, you've got to get the incentives right. And right now, there is no incentive to buy American. None. There's no incentive to buy American when you can get a comparable product. Sure, it's cheaper. Sure, whatever. But you can get a comparable product for so much less. And so, as many people that like to say they would like to buy American, in practice, they really don't do it because the incentives are all jacked up. And so anyway, again, I'm not asking you to agree with the tariffs, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have some anxiety, because some level of anxiety is healthy. But you got to understand that you're not owed any certain standard of living, right? And we're going to get through this. I mean, as simple as that. Okay, sure, you can't buy a new pair of sneakers every year. I think you're going to survive. I think you're going to survive. In any case, that's all I have to say for you, man. This is, there's a lot of people pumping fear. There's a lot of people pumping anxiety, and they want you there. They want you full of fear, full of anxiety, so that they can manipulate you, right? The trick is that you have to really master your fear. You have to own it. And I get it. It's hard sometimes, man. It's hard. It's hard to think, what if I went to the store and I couldn't buy batteries? Like, I couldn't afford them, what would happen then? That kind of thing. It drives anxiety, but this has to be done. This has to be done, and I think that we have been blessed by God to be in a position where those of us who have families that are living today, you're watching this video, you're living today, that we were counted worthy to be part of a situation where we can maybe potentially take some bitter pills ourselves, instead of having our children take those bitter pills, instead of having our children's children take those bitter pills, because those pills, They get worse. They get more and more bitter as time goes on, as the economy becomes more and more out of whack. The eventual pill that you must take, and then at that point you have no choice, is worse and worse and worse. Look, there are some other things that I think Trump needs to do in order to make this a tenable situation, in my opinion. There's much more things that he needs to do, okay? But at the end of the day, this bitter pill's coming, and we've been counted worthy to take it instead of our children and our grandchildren having to take it. And that's an honor, man. That you got to consider that an honor. And we're going to survive, and we're going to be forced to make tougher decisions today than we were yesterday. And we're going to have to figure things out and finagle things financially. And, it's going to be complicated. It's going to be hard. It's going to be stressful. But this is the time. This is the time. The time to do this was 100 years ago. But the next best time is right now. And we've got to figure this thing out so that our children and our children's children have an easier time than we did. I think most parents want that for their kids. In any case, I hope you found this video encouraging a little bit, and I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. I mean, I can't. Obviously I can't. I don't know your situation, right? Maybe you're very wealthy and you don't have to worry about this. Sure, you don't like paying $300 for a shirt, but if you need a $300 shirt, you buy a $300 shirt. Maybe you're not wealthy at all. And all of a sudden, that $300 shirt, you can't buy it. You can't afford it. So you're going to have to figure something else out. You're going to have to look at, hand-me-downs. You're going to have to maybe go to the local secondhand store. Maybe you're going to have to talk to your friends and say, hey, do you have any extra shirts? We could buy some stuff off you. Maybe we could share, that kind of thing. Look, these are all things that happen. And you're not owed anything. Keep that in mind. Especially if you're in a church, I think we can all figure this thing out together. Together, we have the resources, we have the know-how, we have the ability to get through all this stuff. And so if you're not plugged into a local church, now is the time. Now is the time to get plugged into a local church, not only for all of the benefits that come with being part of a local community, but also because the Lord protects his church. The Lord provides for his church. And, listen, if you're not in church, worry about the state of your soul, and that's, of course, the most important thing. And so God bless you all. Hope you found this encouraging. Take care. Puro fuego es mi amor por ti.